and welcome to our English news edition broadcast to you from Canal, Algérie. First, to the headlines. Army General Chief of Staff of the National People's Army Saïd Chinguereha chaired the opening ceremony of the International Military Competition Airborne Section 2022 held in Blida Province, a major event which gathers 16 different countries. Thanks to the efforts and mobilization of the local authorities, the fires of Jijil province have been extinguished. All means are made available to control the other fires which broke out in several provinces of the country, whereas in Tipaza province, the winds are making the task difficult and helicopters belonging to the National People's Army are fully mobilized to help during these operations. Abroad, the Moroccan people are still protesting against the high cost of living and social injustice. Protests suppressed with increasing violence by the Makhzen. Good evening, those were today's headlines. First, in our news, the Army General Chief of Staff of the National People's Army Saïd Chinguereha chaired on Monday the opening ceremony of the International Military Competition, the Airborne Section 2022, organized in the Regional Military Sports Complex in Blida Province, a ceremony which took place in the presence of Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman, the Minister of Communication, the Minister of Culture, as well as general officers of the National Defense Ministry and the High Command of the National People's Army, ambassadors and representatives of the diplomatic corps of the participating countries, in addition to heads of military sports delegations taking part in this competition. Manal Amari.
The Army General Chief of Staff of the National People's Army Saïd Chinguereha presided at the Regional Military Sports Complex in the 1st Military Region, the opening ceremony of the International Military Competition Airborne Section 2022, hosted by Algeria, as part of the International Army Games organized each year in the Russian Federation. This international military sports competition witnessed the participation of a large number of athletes representing 16 countries from different regions of the world, including Algeria, to compete in several disciplines such as the Armored Combat Vehicles Race, Precision Parachute Jump, Orienteering, martial arts competitions, in addition to other individual and collective sports competitions. The opening ceremony started with a speech delivered by the Major General Commander of the Land Forces, followed by a statement made by the General of the Army, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Saïd Chinguereha, during which he welcomed the participating sports delegations, highlighting that this event's organization crowns the joint agreement between Algeria and the Russian Federation. Following the great success of the International Military Dog Handling Competition, Faithful Friend in 2021, that was distinguished by an excellent organization on all levels and motivated this competition supervisors to reaffirm their trust in our country to organize the Airborne Section competition. The General of the Army also presented his sincere thanks to the Russian military authorities who granted our country the opportunity to organize this important event that will see the participation of the best military athletes from the armies of the participating countries, who will compete for 2 weeks in different military sporting activities. The Army General emphasized that this sports event holds countless noble human virtues, the most prominent being the strengthening of the fair play spirit within the military athletes, based on our conviction of the noble role of sports in reinforcing reconciliation links, friendship and cooperation between nations, in an atmosphere of mutual aid and solidarity that undoubtedly contributes to anchoring values of peace, serenity and tolerance, where the best in terms of preparation, training and determination would win. This event would also contribute to expanding experience exchange horizons between the armies in areas of common interest. At the end, the General of the Army extended his wishes of success to all the participants, wishing them to snatch the maximum medals and achieving honorary results up to the expectations of our country's armed forces, who always strive for the best. Subsequently, the General of the Army, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Said Shengriha, kicked off the International Military Competition Airborne Section 2022. Later on, the audience followed the opening ceremony that was marked by individual and collective sports exhibitions. Followed by beautiful musical performances that generated great satisfaction and admiration from the attendees.
On the sidelines of this international military competition and in the presence of Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman, Army General Chief of Staff of the National People's Army Said Shengriha inaugurated a photo exhibition on the different periods and events which marked Algeria's history and that of the National People's Army. In addition to these photos, a military equipment exhibition belonging to the special forces were also displayed. In other news, the fires which broke out in Jijil province were successfully extinguished thanks to the mobilization of the local authorities. All means were also made available to control the other fires which broke out in several provinces of the country. Helicopters belonging to the National People's Army were mobilized to help in these operations. Story by Rani Al-Bahri.
Efforts continue to bring the fires under control in several provinces of the country. All human and material means were provided, such as civil defense and forest governorate, with the contribution of mobilized columns from the neighboring provinces, supported by air units of the National People's Army to control the fire spots and the extinguishing process in Shinwa Mountain in Tipaza province, and also to control the black dots and Lemeder spread to not let it reach residential areas. Whereas in Jijil province, and thanks to the intense efforts, the last fire spots were extinguished at Al Jarrafa and Bishahna municipalities and the surrounding areas.
And to demonstrate their solidarity, the Algerian Red Crescent took initiative alongside the Rapid Disaster Response Committee, as well as volunteers to help those affected by the fires in Bijaya province, with aid surpassing 20 tons of first aid and essential products, in addition to forming a follow-up committee with volunteers and the provincial office to prevent further repercussions. Moving on to international news and concerning the Sahrawi file, the advisor for external cooperation in the government of Gran Canaria called on the international community to enable the Sahrawi people who have struggled for decades to exercise their legitimate right to self-determination. On the other hand, a new report released by the Association for Resources Control and Environmental Protection of Western Sahara revealed that the Moroccan occupation plundered more than 398 tons of the Sahrawi phosphate this year only. In Morocco, people are still organizing daily protests denouncing the high cost of living and social injustice, whereas the Makhzen is turning a blind eye and increasing violent repression instead. Najah Tayyar has the details.
The Moroccans did not stop and yet continue to call for the fall of the Makhzen regime and to denounce the mismanagement of the government that they hold responsible for the current debacle. The popular movement, always in turmoil, and accused the leaders of having impoverished the people and despoiled them of their fundamental rights. Let the official channels show what they want to. As for us, we call for the Makhzen regime decline and for freedom. The freedom to choose a republican governance system. We call for the public schools, for health, and for work opportunities for the youth. All the indicators are red. The same is true for the development indices. Experts even speak of bankruptcy. The Makhzen regime is concerned but does not react. I remind you today that the concept of government is not suppressions on the people who most of them waived their rights to maintain the regular governance, but not to maintain the oppression and the injustice. In this case, the concept of government would change to colonialism. The government must not take the riches of the land and suppress who speak of their rights. Popular mobilization has never been so strong, and the protest is expanding despite the Makhzen regime's repression. Moroccans continue to denounce the shortages, the increase in food prices, and the daily violations of individual freedoms. With the looming specter of drought and the drop in the level of the country's largest dam and the serious threats to the agricultural production, the people protest started to carry on for the wanted results.
Moving on to Palestine, where a Palestinian civilian was shot dead by the Zionist entity's police in the north of Al-Quds. Muhammad al-Hasham was martyred in the city of Kafr Uqab after receiving a bullet to the head. In addition, dozens of settlers stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque under the protection of the Zionist occupation police. And with this, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you for joining us.